Joining me now is retired Major General Dana Petard. He's also now a CNN military analyst. And Kurt Volker is here. He's a former U.S. ambassador to NATO, former special representative for Ukraine negotiations. Thank you both for being here. General, let's start with where I just left off, with the military aid from the Biden administration. Zelensky says that it's never going to be enough. But what is most important in this moment is speed. What is he saying here, since our Pentagon team is also reporting there's a concern that the aid could be used up within a matter of days as heavy fighting intensifies in the Donbass?
Good morning, Kate. I think what President Zelensky is talking about is he needs it now, and it is a matter of timing and speed. And I know that the administration is working hard to get it to him as quickly as possible. But that brings on a bigger question. Is it enough? And it really is not enough to take on Russian forces and also to protect areas in the western portion of Ukraine that were attacked today. What still needs to be done is for the United States and NATO, working with Ukraine, is to establish a humanitarian assistance zone in western Ukraine, going from Kyiv, or just east of Kyiv, down south to Odessa, and all the way west to the Polish border. And that would be enforced on the ground by NATO troops and with a no-fly zone over western Ukraine. And that would prevent things like the missile attack that we saw today in Leviev.
I'm going to ask you about that in just one second. But Ambassador, I mean, you've been involved in talks and negotiations over military aid with Ukraine in the past. What do you think the conversation is, or where do you think it is among the administration at this point? Because where is, or is there a tipping point where the administration kind of gives over more of what Ukraine's asking for?
Well, it's interesting because we've been slipping past these tipping points 1 week at a time. If you remember going back, there was a concern about the use of any kind of offensive weapons. Then there was saying that, well, we're not going to send them Stinger missiles. Then it was not the armed drones. And each step of the way, we've added more and more that we are willing to give them. Now we're even facilitating the delivery of tanks and APCs and artillery. So we have been dragged into this by the Ukrainians and frankly by their military success, where we can see that they can use the equipment rather than starting from the perspective that we should have been giving them everything from the beginning. I hope going forward, we are listening to President Zelensky and giving him everything he needs to keep advancing, because the Russian forces are in disarray. Now is the time, as he says.
And Ambassador, you heard in that portion of the interview we played between President Zelensky and Jake Tapper that he was saying that they have no plans to give up portions of the country in the east in order to bring an end to the war. What do you think that means for any negotiations?
Well, Russia has not been serious about negotiating from the beginning. They've wanted a Ukrainian capitulation, Ukraine to cede territory to Russia and to denazify Ukraine, as they said. This means that Russia's never been serious. Their objective has been to take over Ukraine. Now they have a more limited objective of taking the eastern part of Ukraine. This is not something any Ukrainian government can agree to. Ukrainian people would never agree to this, and Zelensky would come under pressure if he even thought about it. So this is clearly Ukraine willing to fight and defend its own territory. And at this stage, after all the civilian casualties we've seen, the atrocities that we saw in Bucha, the continued missile attacks against cities such as Lviv and Kyiv, the Ukrainian people are saying no more. We need to get our territory back. We need to get Russia out. The ceasefire from 2014, which left Russian forces on Ukrainian territory, is seen by the Ukrainians now as a precursor to the events that we have this year. So they want the Russians to be out.
Yeah. Let's talk about this strike, as you were mentioning, General, in Lviv today, because these are now the first deaths reported from strikes in Lviv. And this is a city of relative, is the emphasis, but relative calm, a key city being about 60 miles from the Polish border. Why would they be hitting Lviv in the west right now when so much focus is clearly now turning to the east?
Okay, there simply was no military value to that strike. It was intended to intimidate civilian casualties. It's known that international media is there at Lviv. So it was a way for Russia to send a message, not just to Ukraine, but to the world, that they can hit Ukraine and civilians anywhere they want to. That's why that has got to be stopped.
General, thank you as always. Ambassador, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it.